They entered poor and returned rich but older. In the village of Nambala, where red dust rose with every footstep and drums spoke louder than words, life had always been predictable. The sun rose, the villagers farmed, the sun set, they slept hungry or hopeful. But everything changed the evening the door appeared. It was during the dry season, when the river had shrunk into a ribbon of dull brown, and the air tasted of dust and longing. Children were chasing each other between mud houses, while elders gathered beneath the ancient baobab tree, discussing failing crops and rising prices in the distant market towns. That was when little Kito, the fastest runner in the village, froze mid-step. "Look," he whispered. At first, no one noticed. Then, one by one, heads turned toward the open clearing at the edge of the village, a place where nothing had ever grown, not even stubborn weeds. There, standing alone in the fading light, was a door. Not a hut, not a wall, just a door. It shimmered softly, carved from wood that seemed too smooth to be touched by any blade. Golden patterns ran across its surface like flowing rivers of light. Around its edges, a faint glow pulsed, not bright enough to blind, but strong enough to feel alive. The sky above burned orange and purple as the sun dipped low. The door appeared only when the sun touched the horizon. No one spoke. Then, old Mama Sefu, the eldest woman in Nambala, leaned on her walking stick and murmured, "Spirits do not arrive without purpose." The villagers stood at a distance, afraid to approach, yet unable to look away. "Maybe it leads to a rich city," one young man whispered. "Or to the ancestors," another said, crossing himself nervously. A low humming sound drifted from the door, soft, almost like distant singing carried by the wind. As the final sliver of sun disappeared, the door creaked open. Not fully, just enough to reveal darkness inside. Deep, endless darkness. The air grew colder. A faint scent of spices, gold, and something ancient drifted outward. "Who will go first?" someone asked. No one answered. Until Baraka stepped forward. Baraka was the poorest man in Nambala, a widower with 3 children and empty storage pots. His farm had failed for 3 seasons, and hunger had carved sharp lines in his face. "If this is death," he said quietly, "then death is kinder than watching my children starve." He walked slowly toward the door. "Baraka, wait," his sister cried. But he didn't stop. Each step seemed heavier than the last, as if the earth itself wanted to hold him back. The glow from the door reflected in his tired eyes. When he finally reached it, he hesitated, just for a heartbeat. Then he stepped inside. The door closed. A collective gasp rippled through the villagers. They waited. The sky darkened, stars emerged, crickets began their nightly chorus. Still, the door remained shut. 1 hour passed. 2. Some villagers went home, shaking their heads. Others stayed, unable to leave. Then, just before midnight, the door creaked open again. Baraka stepped out. He was smiling, but something about him had changed. His back was straighter. His clothes, once torn, now looked new and richly woven. Around his neck hung a chain of gold. In his hands, he carried sacks that clinked and shimmered. Coins, jewels, food wrapped in fine cloth. Gasps filled the clearing. "Baraka," Mama Sefu whispered, "what did you see inside?" He looked at her. For a moment, joy flickered in his eyes. Then something darker replaced it. "I cannot speak of it," he said softly. "Cannot or will not?" a man asked. Baraka only shook his head. "I have brought enough for my children. That is all that matters." He walked past them toward his hut, leaving a trail of stunned silence behind him. Over the next days, Baraka's life transformed. His home was rebuilt with strong timber. His children wore bright clothes. His fields flourished with new tools and seeds. But Baraka himself seemed older. Not by years, perhaps, but by something deeper. His hair showed strands of grey that hadn't been there before. His laughter was quieter. His eyes often drifted toward the western horizon at sunset, filled with something that looked like regret. Still, when the door appeared again the next evening, others were ready. One by one, villagers stepped forward, and one by one they returned, rich beyond imagination. Yet, none would speak of what lay inside. They only smiled and aged. Within a month, Nambala transformed. Mud huts became painted homes with carved doors and strong roofs. The marketplace overflowed with fabrics, spices, and shining tools. Children who once chased goats now played with carved toys and wore sandals of soft leather. Hunger vanished, but so did something else. Laughter. It was subtle at first, easy to ignore. Those who entered the sunset door returned wealthy, but changed. Their shoulders slumped, as if carrying invisible weight. Their eyes held distant shadows. Fine lines appeared on their faces overnight. Baraka, once the youngest-looking man in the village, despite his hardships, now looked a decade older. So did the others. Yet, every evening, when the sun kissed the horizon, the glowing door returned. And every evening, someone new stepped inside. Only one person refused. Her name was Amara. Amara was known for her sharp mind and sharper tongue. She lived with her younger brother and grandmother near the baobab tree. Though poor, she carried herself with quiet pride. Wealth that comes from silence carries a price, her grandmother often said. Amara watched the changes with growing unease. One afternoon, she visited Baraka's home. Gold bowls lined the shelves, fine rugs covered the floor, the smell of roasted meat filled the air. Baraka sat alone, staring at nothing. "You have everything you wished for," Amara said gently. "Yet you look as though you have lost something." Baraka's hand trembled. "Do not ask me about the door," he whispered. "I will not," she replied. "But answer this. If you could undo your choice, would you?" He closed his eyes. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, in a voice barely louder than breath, "Yes." A chill ran through Amara. That evening, as the sky burned orange and purple once more, the door appeared again. Villagers gathered eagerly. Some carried empty sacks ready to fill them with riches. Others brought baskets and chests. Amara stood at the edge of the crowd. "Why do you not go?" her brother asked. "We could live like chiefs." She watched as another villager stepped into the glowing doorway and vanished. "Because," she said slowly, "wealth that steals something unseen is never a gift." Her grandmother nodded quietly. But curiosity grew inside Amara like a restless spirit. Each day she observed those who returned. She counted the new grey hairs, the tired eyes, the way they avoided mirrors. One night, unable to sleep, she walked to the baobab tree. To her surprise, she found Mama Sefu already there. "You feel it too," the old woman said. Amara sat beside her. "They come back rich and older." Mama Sefu nodded. "Not older in years alone, older in spirit." A long silence stretched between them. Then Mama Sefu whispered, "Some doors are not meant for human footsteps." The next evening, something changed. A young boy named Tano stepped forward. He was barely 16, an orphan who lived by helping others with small tasks. The villagers murmured nervously as he approached. "You are too young," someone called. But Tano shook his head. "I want a future," he said. He stepped inside. When he returned hours later, he carried gold bracelets and fine clothes. But his face, His face looked like that of a man twice his age. Wrinkles lined his forehead. His eyes looked tired, ancient. A cry rose from the crowd. "Tano!" Amara rushed forward. "What happened to you?" He smiled weakly. "I have everything now," he said, but his voice sounded old. That night, Amara could no longer ignore the truth forming in her mind. The door did not give without taking, and whatever it took from time itself. Sleep abandoned Amara. Each night she lay awake listening to the distant drums and the soft breathing of her brother beside her. Every sunset the door appeared, every sunset someone entered, and every sunset someone returned, older. The village grew rich beyond imagination. Traders traveled from distant lands, astonished by Nambala's sudden prosperity. They spoke of it as a blessed place, favored by unseen forces. But blessings did not leave shadows in the eyes of those who received them. Amara began to notice the smallest details. A once energetic farmer now walked with a slight stoop. A woman who used to sing while grinding grain now hummed only softly, as though afraid of disturbing something unseen. Laughter, once loud and frequent, now sounded forced and brief. It was as if the village had traded not just years, but joy. One evening, as sunset approached, Amara climbed the rocky hill beyond the baobab tree, a place elders said carried echoes of the ancestors. The air was cooler there, touched by the whisper of wind moving across the savannah. She knelt on the red earth and closed her eyes. "If the ancestors watch," she murmured, "help me understand this door." Silence answered. Then, slowly, the wind shifted. The scent of burning herbs, the kind used in ancient rituals, drifted through the air. A faint humming sound surrounded her, similar to the sound that came from the mysterious door. Amara opened her eyes. An old man stood before her. He wore robes woven from threads of moonlight and shadow. His skin bore tribal markings from a time long forgotten. His eyes glowed faintly, like embers hidden beneath ash. Amara's breath caught. "Are you real?" she whispered. "I am memory," he replied. His voice sounded like dry leaves moving across stone. "I am what remains when time forgets." She bowed her head. "Tell me about the door," she pleaded. The old man looked toward the horizon, where the sun hovered just above the earth. Its light painted the sky in deep orange and crimson. "That door," he said softly, "is older than your village, older than the baobab, older than the paths your people walk." A chill crept down Amara's spine. "What is inside it?" "A market," he replied, "a market where spirits trade with humans." "For what?" The old man turned his gaze back to her. "For time." The word struck her like a drumbeat. "Years of life," he continued, "moments yet to be lived, futures yet to unfold. Inside that door stands a marketplace unseen by ordinary eyes. Stalls of gold, baskets of jewels, fabrics woven from dreams. And the price for all of it is not coin, but time itself." Amara's hands trembled. "They trade their years?" she whispered. "Yes. And they do not know?" "They feel it," he said. "But by the time they understand, the bargain is sealed." A deep sadness filled his eyes. "Long ago," he continued, "a village richer than yours found that door. They traded their years for endless wealth. Within a generation, their children were gone. Their elders turned to dust. Their homes stood empty, filled with treasure no one remained to use." Amara's heart pounded. "Why does the door appear here now?" "Because desire calls it," he answered. "Where hunger for wealth grows louder than gratitude for life, the door returns." The sun touched the horizon. In the distance, the glowing door appeared once more. "If this continues," Amara said, "what will happen to Nambala?" The old man's voice became barely a whisper. "Your village will become rich, and then it will become a memory." Fear tightened in her chest. Can it be stopped? He studied her carefully. Every door that opens can be closed, he said, but closing it will demand a sacrifice greater than gold, even greater than time. What kind of sacrifice? He began to fade, his form dissolving into the wind, one that cannot be undone.
Wait, Amara cried. Tell me how. But the hill stood empty once more. Below, the villagers gathered around the glowing door. Another person stepped forward eagerly, disappearing inside. Amara clenched her fists. If no one stopped this, Nambala would vanish, and she knew deep in her bones that the responsibility had fallen to her. Amara did not tell anyone what she had seen on the hill, not yet. If she spoke without proof, the villagers would dismiss her warnings as fear or jealousy. Wealth had made them bold and blind. So she made a decision that filled her with equal parts dread and determination. She would enter the door herself, but not for wealth, for truth. The next evening, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, Amara wrapped herself in a simple cloak. Her brother noticed her movements and frowned. "Where are you going?" "To find answers," she said gently. He grabbed her arm. "Don't go near that door." She hesitated, then pulled him into a tight embrace. "No matter what happens," she whispered, "remember that time is more precious than gold." Before he could respond, she walked toward the clearing. The villagers stood gathered as always, whispering excitedly. Some carried baskets, others small chests ready to be filled. The glow from the door painted their faces in warm gold. When Amara stepped forward, murmurs spread through the crowd. "You are finally going," someone said. "Smart girl," another laughed. "You will return rich." Amara said nothing. As she approached, the door creaked open slowly, revealing the same endless darkness. A faint melody drifted from within, haunting, beautiful, and strangely sad. Her heart pounded. Then she stepped inside. The darkness swallowed her. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no light, no ground beneath her feet. Then, gradually, shapes emerged. Lanterns flickered to life. A vast marketplace stretched before her. Stalls lined a wide stone path, each one overflowing with treasures beyond imagination. Piles of gold coins, necklaces of rare gems, silks that shimmered like captured sunsets, baskets of fruit that glowed faintly with inner light. Strange figures moved between the stalls. They looked almost human, but not quite. Their eyes glowed softly. Their movements were too smooth, too fluid. Some had faint markings across their skin that shifted like smoke. Spirits! Amara's breath caught. A tall figure approached her. Its form shimmered between shapes, man, woman, shadow, light, never settling fully. "Welcome," it said, voice smooth as flowing water. "What do you seek?" Amara forced herself to stand firm. "I seek nothing. I seek understanding." The spirit tilted its head. "Understanding has a price. I will not trade my years," she said quickly. A soft, almost amused sound escaped the spirit. "All who enter trade something," it said, "even those who claim they will not." It gestured toward the market. "Look around." Amara walked slowly past the stalls. She saw villagers from Nambala, some she recognized, bargaining eagerly. One woman exchanged a glowing thread from her own chest for a necklace of diamonds. A man handed over a small orb of light that looked like captured sunlight and received bags of gold in return. Each time, the spirit merchant smiled. Each time, the villagers aged, just slightly. Amara's stomach twisted. Near the center of the market stood a large scale made of black stone. On one side lay piles of treasure. On the other side hovered faint glowing shapes, fragments of time, she realized. Years, moments, lifetimes. The spirit guide spoke again. "Your people trade generously. Their future feeds our realm." Rage flickered inside her. "You are stealing their lives." "We are trading," the spirit corrected calmly. "They come willingly. They desire what we offer." Amara looked around. Most villagers appeared entranced by wealth, but some looked regretful, their eyes heavy with realization. "Can this door be closed?" she demanded. The spirit studied her for a long moment. Yes. Hope flared in her chest. "But," it continued, "closing it requires balance." "What balance?" "A life freely given," the spirit said softly. "Not traded for wealth, not exchanged for gain. A life offered only to seal the door forever." The word struck her like a blow. "A sacrifice?" she whispered. "Yes." Silence filled the space between them. "Once sealed," the spirit said, "the door will never open again. Your village will keep what it has gained, but no more trades will occur." Amara's mind raced. If no one acted, Nambala would slowly trade away its future. But to close the door, someone would have to give their life willingly. The spirit stepped aside. "You may leave now, or you may trade." Amara turned toward the exit. But as she walked, she knew the truth had already chosen her. When Amara stepped out of the door, dawn was breaking. The villagers rushed toward her eagerly. "What did you see? What did you bring back? Are you rich now?" She raised her hand. Silence slowly spread across the clearing. "There is a market inside," she said clearly. "A spirit market. And the price for every coin, every jewel, every gift is years of your life." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some laughed nervously. Others shook their heads in denial. "That cannot be true," one man said. "I feel fine." Amara pointed gently at his hair, now streaked with gray that hadn't been there weeks ago. He touched it and fell silent. She explained everything: the trades, the scales, the fragments of time. Fear began to replace excitement. "And if we stop going?" someone asked. "The door will remain," Amara said softly. "Temptation will return each sunset. Sooner or later, someone will enter again." A heavy silence settled. "Then what can we do?" Mama Sefu asked. Amara took a deep breath. "It can be closed," she said, "but only if someone offers their life freely to seal it forever." Gasps filled the air. "No," her brother whispered. "No, Amara." She turned to him with gentle eyes. "If this continues, the village will lose generations. Children not yet born will vanish before they live. Wealth is useless if no one remains to hold it." Tears streamed down his face. "There must be another way." She wished there was.